Hi, folks, and welcome to Glenn and Adrian's Rock Talk. Today's subject is King Crimson, Larks Tongue in Aspic,
Yep, yep, been listening to it for a long time.
probably since the 80s.
Yeah,
But, yeah, I know I first came across King Crimson when they put out Discipline, which was a 1981
I
record.
remember that.
Uh,
I remember hearing that album back in the day.
yeah, it's actually a quite a good record, but it doesn't quite sound like this one, although it does have a Larks Tongues in Aspic Part 3, I believe. Wait, I've got it
That
right.
would give a perfect pair that has
You are correct.
that.
You are correct about that. I do have three of a perfect pair, but I don't have it with me here. But in any
Yeah,
event,
I've got a few songs from it, I think. I don't think I have the whole album.
yeah. And without getting too deep into that one, it has a completely, well, not a completely different lineup. It still has Bill Bruford, who is the drummer on this record, Lark's Tongue. Uh, then there's other people. I mean, Robert Fripp, of
Robert Fripp.
course. Robert
Yeah,
Fripp is part of everything King Crimson. At this point, Robert Fripp is the basic person you need to have King Crimson, and the
yeah.
really the only one. Um,
The only member who's been there the whole time.
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right. And it's really his vehicle at this point, and really from early on. So
yeah.
this is their sixth album. It came out in 1973, and I've just mentioned Bill Bruford is the drummer on this. It's his first time on a King Crimson album, and he came straight from Yes after doing Close to the Edge. Apparently, he was bored with Yes and decided to move on to King Crimson after doing Close to the Edge, which, if you haven't heard, is a great album in its own right. But so the other two members on this album are John Wetton, later of Asia,
Yep.
um, on bass and vocals, excellent bass player. And then there's David Cross on the violin, the viola, and the mellotron. So kind of the all-around, you know,
String guy.
in baseball you have the utility players. He's kind of the utility player there. So, and he does it quite well. So this is made up of six tracks total. Three of them are instrumentals, and three of them have words. And
Yeah.
starts off with Lark's Tongue.
Well, the Larks Tongue Part One is,
I know.
I don't know how to describe it really. It's very good. It's very unique.
Well, it
A lot
starts.
of
It
ways.
starts with that little kalimba, the little thumb harp thing from the
Yeah,
70s.
yep,
Everybody in the 70s had a little kalimba, and it's
yeah, I
actually,
remember those.
yeah, and that it does that for a while there are other things. They're kind of building a soundscape up. This is something that Crimson will do. They will build soundscapes. They'll build a scene in your head that you're hearing just from various instruments. They're trying to build a feeling or a scene in your head, kind of an oral or an aural scene.
Hmm.
And kalimba, by the way, is the same instrument that Earth, Wind, and Fire adopted as their main, almost their mascot instrument. Earth, Wind, and Fire albums, you'll hear a lot of kalimba in there. But anyway, it was a popular thing. Everybody had them at the time. Um, so this thing is 13 minutes long, and it goes through several different time signatures,
I originally said stages, but maybe the better word would be motifs.
perhaps. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's almost several movements almost.
Yeah,
Because there's you hear the little straight the mellotrons coming in where they go do 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 do.
I
Those,
always thought they were real strings for some reason, but that would make sense that they would use a mellotron for that part instead.
yeah. Yeah, I noticed that there are no string arrangement credits or anything like that on here. All they say is Mellotron. Fripp also plays Mellotron when he's not playing guitar. I guess he sometimes does Mellotron.
Played
Uh,
mellotron red, I know
yeah, okay, so that makes sense.
that.
Um, yeah, so there are a lot of different movements of this thing. You'll hear the guitar for a while just doing something very strange for, you know, in a very hard to
Yeah.
understand time.
There's that part of it. I know what part you're talking about.
Yep.
I
And
can't
then the
really
band comes cracking in.
describe. Uh,
Band comes in all at once on a note, on kind of what would seem like a random note to the listener, but is not actually random, since they all match up. Anyway, it's very interesting, and it comes to a big crescendo at the end. Big build up, the drums doing a drum roll, and everybody kind of in a frenzy after repeating the same main theme that comes back, and then they and for the last minute or so, it winds back down and goes into a different thing.
Yeah, they have they start with the children's voices and then they have the adult voices. Just
Oh, is
you can't even make sure you can't even make out what they're saying or anything. You just hear them in the background. You have to during that quiet part, like after the quiet violin part in Larks Tongue Part One, if you turn the volume up, you can hear
yeah.
like dialogue
See,
going
now
on.
I remember there are so many little bits and pieces in this piece that it's very difficult to remember them all at once. I mean,
Yeah.
in fact, you probably hear new things all the time when you play this record. I mean, I believe that I do. Or I'm re-reminded of things, even years into listening to this. After that, we end up in Book of Saturday, which is a much smaller and much simpler piece. I,
Shortest song on the album. I think it's the only song on the album that's less than 3 minutes long, and that's saying something for King
yeah,
Crimson.
yeah, and there's no drums to speak of. Um,
Mhm.
everybody else is in there, but no drums, no Bruford. He got the day off on Saturday, I guess. The credit on here is Fripp, Wetton, and Palmer James. With Sinfield gone, apparently they had Pete Sinfield was no longer in the mix, and he had written all the early.
No, he was by now he was working with the ELP.
Okay, did he do their lyrics too? Was that what?
Yeah, yeah, he did much of the lyrics on Carnival Nine, Brain Salad Surgery. I mean, that's the name of the album. Carnival Nine is just 3/4 of the album.
All right, so he left. Apparently, maybe he was more friendly with Greg Lake. It's interesting. Um,
Yeah, he co-wrote a lot of stuff with Greg Lake on that Brain Salad
yeah.
album.
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm thinking he must, since Lake was the original singer in King Crimson, just putting that out there in case anybody doesn't know it. On that first album, Court of the Crimson King, he was the singer, and he did a little singing on the next record too. But in any case, Pete Sinfield had moved on, so the new lyricist was Wetton's friend Richard Palmer James, who was originally in
Oh,
Supertramp.
what?
He was originally in Supertramp.
Originally in Supertramp. Oh, okay. That's what I thought you said.
So those are probably his words then.
Mhm. It could be.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, all the songs with lyrics have Palmer James as a credit. So I think we can assume that Palmer James wrote all the words on this record, and maybe it's the first one where he did that. So he's got an interesting lyrical quality I can't really follow very easily. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's a little challenging to understand the words completely or
Yeah,
anything, but
I agree.
you know,
The
Book
lyric,
of Saturday. It's just well, it's a very, as you said, it's a very simple song. You know, I like the basic riff to it. The first verse is pretty clear. It's a motif I've heard in other songs, actually, by other artists as well. You know, it's like, I try to leave you, but the wheels never touch the road, or I can't get the car out of the driveway, or something like that.
hmm
I, I think there was some mention of that in Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. There was some reference to car not leaving the driveway or something. I mean, it seems to be a recurring motif in songs, anyway, in some songs.
It kind of sounds like a marital problem.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
I mean, for a less than 3 minute songs, there's
Yeah,
an awful lot of lyrics in this.
yeah, and the lyrics could mean any of a number of things too.
That's true. That's true. It feels like he's complaining about his partner a little bit.
You make my life and times a book of bluesy Saturdays.
My life is just a book of bluesy Saturdays.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to make of that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Doesn't sound like a particularly good thing. It's
Probably not.
in a rut.
But you say that by itself, bluesy Saturdays.
Yeah, it sounds like he's having some issues with his spouse or whomever, and they're not understanding him as well or something. I don't know. They've got things to work out. It's probably time for some marriage counseling. Bring this to the
Yeah,
counselor.
or a better car that they'll get out of the driveway or
That's
something.
right. That's right. Yeah, let's just bring these lyrics to the therapist and see what they say, to the
Yeah,
marriage counselor. What do you think this means? As the cavalry of despair takes a stand in the lady's hair for the favor of making sweet 16.
yeah, that's a confusing one. I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting, but it's
He
kind of
responds like limousine brought alive on the silent screen to the shuddering breath of yesterday. Like, huh?
I don't know what that means.
Anyway, thank you, Mr. Palmer James. And, it kind of makes me think I should check out what his words sounded like in Supertramp. See if there was anything there. Let's move on to Exiles since that's the next one and take a look at those. Now, I think we were looking at this yesterday and decided that it was a song having to do with being on tour.
Oh, oh yeah, I remember. I
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, Exiles, the lyrics feel like they're on tour, now in this faraway land. Strange that the palms of my hand should be damp with expectancy.
Oh
It's,
yeah, that makes total sense.
yeah,
Get me for a show. I never even figured that much of it out about the lyrics, I've always liked the music to the album. It's just a very, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just,
it soars on this song. There's a soaring quality to this one.
yeah, yeah,
The violin and the mellotrons together really give it.
exactly. I was about to mention that.
It sounds. I think it's the most accessible sounding song on the album.
Yeah,
Now it does have some funny parts as well, just like all the others. Like it'll be soaring along and then it'll come to a stop and sound like it's stuck in the mud for a little while. You know, like a wagon trying to navigate through a big muddy, you know, just through dragging, and then it gets over to the other side and then they start soaring again. They like go back. So it's very interesting that way, and it's got a cool bridge. That's where they're talking about the Lord I had to go. My trail was laid too slow behind me.
Then it goes into another key after that.
Or make a drunkard's name for me. You know.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I
So
remember that line.
yeah,
Reading it. I'm like, what does that mean? Sounds interesting.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty interesting for sure. Yeah. So that song, I think that happens to be my favorite song on the record. Not to take away from the three instrumentals, which I also like quite a bit. Um, they're all fantastic, I think, and they make up the bulk of the album.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's that one, and very successful track, I think. And then that takes us into Easy Money, which is much more. There's a darkness to it, you know.
Oh,
There's something very dark about even the concept of easy money, I think. Like the first lyrics are, your admirers in the street got to hoot and stamp their feet in the heat from your physique as you twinkle by in moccasin sneakers. You know, we could take the money home, sit around the family throne. My old dog could chew his bone. For 2 weeks, we could appease the Almighty. Easy money. So clearly, this is not money made honestly.
right.
It's a very cynical song and dark. Takes some interesting
I
turns.
don't think it's in praise of the pursuit of wealth.
No, no. This is more like street shysters or something. I don't know. Con men. I don't know if he's equating the band with. No, I don't think that the band has anything to do with it this time. I think this is just, because there's one of the last choruses, one of the last verses. Got no truck with the la-di-da. Keep my bread in an old fruit jar. Drive you out in a motor car. Getting fat on your lucky star. Just making easy money. So It's those are good words, I must say. I actually really enjoy that that set of lyrics.
Yeah.
But the song is dark, and you can tell. You're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay. And it's got all of the trademarks of this particular era of Crimson. You know, a lot of angularity, a lot of the drums might be playing straight four, but everybody else is sort of playing other rhythms. You know, like Fripp turns around every seven measures or something and starts over whatever he's playing. You know, and maybe he goes up one note or something. Um, but it all works. It's all controlled, but it's almost like they're all moving around on their own, even though they are stuck together like gears. I'm talking like at the end, it's like, it gets up there, and then you've got that like the wind up guy laughing
Oh,
hysterically,
yeah.
at the end.
Laughing box, they used to call those, I think.
What was
You
it?
put, it was like this little plastic thing about the size of a transistor radio. You push a button and it starts laughing. It's got that plastic.
Yeah, I think I've actually seen them before. I think maybe somebody I knew had one or something.
I think I had one.
Okay.
One too.
So that's easy money. Definitely a
Yep.
worthwhile track. Not necessarily one for the family on a family gathering. But so that takes care of all the lyrics on the record, and then we head into track two on side two, which is the talking drum. And this is the one. There's a lot about it that's kind of straightforward. It does start again with kind of you're hearing things happen in a room, or and trying to make sense of it. And
And it builds up over the next
yeah,
first couple minutes of the song.
yeah, and it's almost like there's a mantra or something. Yeah, because it's just a steady beat, and it just comes up in volume and intensity.
Yeah.
And that's all it does for 7.5 minutes until it gets to the end. And
Talk about loud noises. The end
yeah,
of talking drum.
yeah, it comes, everything comes to a big crescendo, and then you've got a whole bunch of, I don't know what, it almost sounds like,
Sound like brass instruments,
yeah, or
trumpets,
something.
horns, something like that.
Yeah,
I'm saying that's what it is. I don't know.
cacophony. Whatever it is, it's a cacophony. And there's stereo panning going on. It's all this, you know, different, whether it's brass instruments or whatever it is. Uh, and yeah, and that goes on for a bit, and then it comes to a hard stop and goes straight into the guitar riff starting Larks Tongue In Aspic Part 2. The bam, bum, bum, bam, bum, bam, bum, bam, bam,
Which
bam.
is probably my favorite song on the album,
Yeah, yeah,
the last one.
that's a good one. Yeah, and yeah, a lot of very intricate stuff happening, um, and
Yeah,
Bill Bruford is perfect on it. Everything he does is exactly right. I mean, really, the whole band does a great job on it.
a very kind of almost simple type of riff, just the part in the beginning, like, it's very mellow.
Yeah,
Because it starts out that way, kind of
yeah,
builds over the next several minutes. And so,
yep, yep. And just like all the others on this side in particular, it comes to a big crescendo at the end. Then they come to then they stop, almost like you hear on Sergeant Pepper at the end of Day in the
and
Life.
there's this big drawn out
Yeah.
blast after
Yeah.
that. Yep.
It's like the walls are coming down.
Great way to end an album.
Yeah. So this album is great if you are looking for stuff that builds, 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 and then at the end it just at the end something big happens at the end. This is very satisfying if you're looking for that kind of music. And there's so many weird things going on within this lineup and within what they're playing and their arrangements. It's impossible to describe them all, but you really should give it a listen. This is one of those records. If you only listened to, let's say, two King Crimson records, this should be one of them.
Oh yeah.
The other one should be Court of the Crimson King, just for,
Oh, yeah. My feelings exactly.
yeah. So, yeah, recorded January, February 73, came out, still a big classic record 48 years later. Hard to believe it's been 48 years. Really cool artwork on the front there. Yeah, and iconic. You may have seen this around. Well, this is where it came from. Um, so I would give this album a high recommendation to anybody, especially if you have an inclination towards progressive rock or rock music that is a little bit more. I mean, there's sort of a jazz component to it, but it's also a very aggressive in a lot of ways. Well, it runs the gamut, but one side of the gamut is very aggressive music, aggressive angular music. Um, the other side is very relaxing, very smooth and they really do run the gamut. They extend and they have a gamut much wider than most bands. So I give it a high recommendation. I would probably rate this about 4.5 to through 4 3/4 stars.
Wow.
Yeah, somewhere up there.
I'd probably give it 4 stars myself,
Mhm.
and maybe even more. I actually can't think of anything that I'm not enthusiastic about this album. Really, I don't love about it.
Yeah, it's good, and it is one that you can just keep flipping, play it
Mhm.
again and again. You can play it all day. You probably keep hearing new things every time.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if you end up that you do like that record, end up liking it enough to explore further, you're in luck because this was one of the more stable lineups, sans the violin player David Cross, that King Crimson had, at least till the '80s when they had 3 albums in a row with the same people. But there were 2 more that had Fripp, Wetton on bass, and Bruford on drums. There's this one, Starless and Bible Black.
Yeah,
Okay.
good
A
album.
lot of great stuff on this one.
Mhm.
A lot of it was recorded live, and you wouldn't know it really. And Red, where they all finally got on the cover. There you go. Fripp,
Uh,
Wetton, Bruford. Am I right about that?
no, you got
Bruford.
Bruford
Yeah,
and Wetton.
Wetton, Bruford. Fripp,
Yes.
Wetton, Bruford. Sorry, I'm doing this backwards, folks. Sorry. That's definitely Bill Bruford, though.
Yeah, that's another album by King Crimson that I love as well.
Yeah.
We probably mentioned 3 of my 4 favorite King Crimson albums. No, we mentioned all 4 of them. The Court of the Crimson King, The Larks Tongues, Red, and Discipline.
Yeah, yeah, all stellar records. Yeah, I mean this one would probably be my third on the list of favorite Crimson albums.
Mhm.
Discipline is definitely up there. Discipline almost sounds like a different band to me. Yeah, because they take
They were going to call it Discipline instead of King Crimson when
yeah.
they first recorded it.
Yeah, that actually makes sense to me, because it's different from the earlier King Crimson in much the same way that Yes's 90215 or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
that '83 album, the way that that one is different from the earlier Yes albums. They're still good albums,
Yeah.
but they just don't sound like the same band. And it's the same deal, they weren't going to be Yes, they were going to be some new band. I don't remember what they were going to call themselves, but it was supposed to be a different band. And then they said, no, let's make it Yes, because now John Anderson's back. Um, yeah, this happens with a lot of bands. It happened too with David Bowie. Remember, we were talking about David Bowie and the Man Who Sold the World, kind of
Mhm.
a hard rock album that he made. It was his third album uh, between the Space Oddity and the Hunky Dory album, and that one was supposed to be a new band called Hype that included Mick Ronson and basically the people that became the Spiders from Mars, except Tony Visconti being on bass. Sorry, that's a lot of information. Anyway, uh, there's a lot of instances where suddenly a project that was not supposed to be billed as one thing is indeed billed that way, and in the end it makes sense. But so that's what happened with Discipline for me. Um, but I love so many of those early King Crimsons. I really like Lizard as well. Speaking of John Anderson, Lizard includes John Anderson on side 2, like half the
Oh,
record.
yeah.
Lark's Tongue is a little bit tricky, but it is good music. Frankly, Discipline is more conventional, and so is Court of the Crimson King, although that one's pretty different too. So you have to be a little adventurous. If you like early Genesis, King Crimson's the way to go, or even the early Yes. You know, a lot of the Crimson's a little bit more. It's not as accessible as Yes, but it's kind of from the same universe, and just turned up, you know, the aggression and the angularity. Well, we hope you enjoyed our exploration of King Crimson, Larks Tongue in Aspic, and if you did, why not leave us a comment, maybe a like, maybe share this with some like-minded friends.
Well, let us know you're here.
That's right. Yeah, we always like to know if you have something you want to suggest that we're going to cover. Go ahead and leave it in the comments. Okay. So for today, we're going to say see you later, and we'll see you in the
Bye.
next video. Take care.